Hi, I am KC Lau presenting the materials of Property Method course prepared with Ong KL, the real estate investment expert. You have made it to module 10. In this video, we are going to discuss about how to manage your investment property. You will get to learn about all the following topics. Do you want to manage your property? Types of management available to you, how you can set up a simple and efficient record-keeping system, what you should know before renting out your property, how to locate and qualify prospective tenants, and what to do if you have continual vacancies. One of the more important decisions you need to make before you start looking for a real estate investment is just how involved do you want to become in the operation of your investment? The only decision you have had to make if you are primarily in the stock market is when to buy or sell. Owning a few shares of Genting stock did not entitle you to make any decision regarding the operation of the company. Likewise, if you invest in banks or insurance companies, they will invest your funds without consulting you first, and they take care of all the management decisions. Now you have a different decision to make. If this is your first venture into real estate, you will realize that you are now in control. You can make the decision that will affect the operation of your investment. It's not as frightening as it may sound. Managing a rental apartment is not as complex as running Genting, In fact, it's probably easier than managing your own household. At least your tenants know who is the boss. You have to decide just how involved you wish to become. There are three basic factors that enter into these decisions. First, how much free time do you have to manage your property? You may be working full-time, so you have none. If you are retired, you may have nothing but time, and ownership of a real estate investment is just what you need to keep yourself active, both mentally and physically. Second, what is your mental attitude toward your investment? Perhaps you have the time, but cannot stand the thought of talking with your tenants or helping them with the problems they may have in the apartments. Third, how much, if anything, are you willing to sacrifice to maximize your profit? Obviously, we all would like to get rich without doing anything. But unless you have a wealthy relative who dies and leaves everything to you, that is not likely to happen. It may be easier to leave all the management responsibilities to someone else, but this will cost money and thereby reduce your profit too. Don't get the wrong idea about real estate investing at this point. We'll discuss how you can do as much or as little as you wish in the management of your real estate investment and still realize more profit than you are receiving from any of your present investments. Types of management available to you. To help you decide how much you want to get involved with your investment, here are the two options of management that are available to you: resident management and property management. A resident manager is someone who is hired to take care of the day-to-day problems that may arise in the ownership of a property that is rented to tenants. What does this mean to the owner of a property? There are always minor problems that may come up. Many of you, at one time or another, have rented an apartment or house, and since the landlord is expected to maintain the property, it is natural for a tenant to expect the maximum attention to his minor complaints, such as a dripping water faucet or broken wall socket. Then there are more urgent needs, such as a tenant who locks himself out of his apartment at 2 a.m. and calls you to come and let him in. So far, you are probably thinking, who wants all these problems? In fact, Vast majority of tenants in a well-maintained building are reasonable and trouble-free. Like you and me, they need a place to live, a place to call home, and they want to enjoy all the comforts that we all do. If you are convinced that you do not have time or the patience to manage your tenants, you will need a resident manager. He lives in or near your property and can take care of all the day-to-day problems that arise. Where do you find him or her? You can ask among your real estate agents and easily find one who is currently doing such a part-time job. Or you can pick someone among your tenants if they are all staying in the same building or neighborhood. Once you have owned your property for some time, you should know your real estate agents and tenants well. If you are unable to find a manager from your real estate agents or tenants, you can run an advertisement in the local newspaper. Spell out what you expect from him and the compensation he can expect to receive. Make a list of what is expected of your resident manager and give him a copy. This may include additional duties such as showing a vacant apartment to a potential tenant. A good resident manager is he or she who has the time to watch after your property. Pick someone that you know spends a lot of time at home. He is, or you feel he will be, conscientious, who can perform his work well and thoroughly. He must be at least resourceful, if not handy. This is an important point. If he does not know how to repair that leaking faucet or replace that broken electrical socket, at least he must know who can help him. If he is a handyman, he will be worth more than what you have to pay him. He should also get along well with your other tenants. How do you select this resident manager? Your best bet is a retirement age individual or couple who is usually there. He probably has had years of experience in handling people and doing minor repair work. Your next best bet may be a young married couple who will be happy to get a break on their rent in return for looking after your properties. How much should you pay him? That depends on the size of your properties and how much he is expected to do. A small apartment, say 2 to 3 room unit, perhaps 25 ringgit to 50 ringgit a month is enough. But don't be cheap. A good manager will be worth everything you pay him and more. In a large apartment complex, which you expect him to manage more than 20 units for you, he may be given a free apartment to stay. You have now made someone at a reasonable cost to you a resident manager. You will be able to outsource most of the tedious work of managing a property. You are now left with the only remaining task involved in the management of your property, the money end. This includes negotiating lease, collecting rents, paying bills, and keeping an account of the operation. We will cover many of the details you need to know before renting your property out later in this chapter. Regarding collecting of rents, most tenants in quality apartment automatically deposit their rents into your bank account each month. This makes the rent collecting job an automatic operation. To protect yourself against those tenants who are habitually late in paying their rent, consider writing a late penalties clause in your lease. You can download a comprehensive sample of lease or tenancy agreement here. The next task is to pay the monthly bills and make the mortgage payment. This task can be made automatic also by applying a standing instruction to bank so that the monthly payments will be deducted from your bank account automatically. The final item is to keep an accurate accounting of all income and expenses. the Inland Revenue Authority, or HASIL, will expect it. We will cover simple record keeping later in this module also. While hiring a resident manager saves you some times and troubles of managing your property, hiring a professional property management company is another option that can outsource almost all of the works in managing your properties. After reviewing what is involved in these remaining management tasks, if you decide you want no part of it, consider employing a professional property management company to do it for you. Basically, their job will consist of finding tenants, showing apartments and negotiating leases, collecting rents, paying bills and mortgage payments, keeping bookkeeping records, sending you a monthly statement on the operation of your property, overseeing the resident manager, making certain the property are properly maintained, and contracting for any major repairs or replacement that may be needed. Any major expenditure would be only with your authorization. You should give the management company some guidelines as to what expenditures they are allowed to make without your prior approval. If, for example, a hot water heater springs a leak on a Saturday morning, it is obvious that the unit needs to be repaired or replaced. If you happen to be out of town that weekend, your tenants cannot wait until the following Monday to have it repaired or replaced. The management company may recommend, however, that the property needs painting. This is a major expense that needs your business judgment. In making this judgment, count more than the immediate money in your pocket. A well-maintained property draws a better quality tenant, produces higher rents, and is more sellable at a top price when the time comes to move into a larger investment. A professional property management company offers additional benefits not available to you as an individual property owner. They manage a number of properties, so they may have their own contract handyman, electrician, etc. Your cost of repairs and maintenance will be less. When it comes to replacement of major appliances, chances are they buy in volume and can pass additional savings on to you as well. A good management company also keeps abreast of the current rental market and can keep our income at the maximum level. Being in the business, they will probably have a ready source of potential tenants. They are also experts in pre-screening of tenants to be sure those who lease your property are reliable. And finally, there is something to be said for the fact that the management company is not emotionally involved with your property or tenants. They can look at the property objectively as a business, whereas you may not. They do not become personally involved with tenants, which you may do, and in doing so, cause all types of problems as well as loss of income. What does a management company charge for all this service? It depends upon the size of your property and the neighborhood in which it is located. You can probably plan on spending 5% of the gross rents collected for management, more if the property is smaller. Some management companies will not consider smaller properties, so call a couple in your area and ask them. You do not want to pay them a fee based on what the property should produce in income, or it would not matter to them if they rented the unit or not. Basing their income on the rents that they actually collect also gives them the incentive to keep the unit leased at the highest possible rent. Likewise, you do not want to base their fee on the income after operating expenses have been taken out. The management company may then be unwilling to properly maintain the property because any reduction in net operating income, that is the income left after all operating expenses but before mortgage payments, that will also reduce their fee. They may also charge a separate fee for negotiating leases. A typical fee would be 5% for the first year's rent or half a month rent for every 12 months lease. This leasing fee is above and beyond their normal management fee. How to locate a qualified property management company. Your best approach in finding a qualified property management company is to check the yellow pages under real estate management. Check with several and ask the following question. Are you a certified property manager? A property manager having this designation is a professional. If your area has no CPMs, continue the questioning anyway and pick the best one available. The second question, are you licensed, bonded and insured? This protects you and your property. Is a property management your full-time business? Many real estate brokers dabble in property management because it is a source of listing. The fourth question, what properties do you presently manage? May I contact the owners to see if they are satisfied? The last question is, how much do you charge? They will need to know full details about your property to answer these questions. Size of the complex, type of property, and closeness to others they currently manage will enter into their pricing. Although the management function is the same for most types of investment properties, the cost may vary depending on the amount of time the management company must spend. For example, a large office building with tenants on long-term leases is easier to manage than a small apartment building with month-to-month or yearly leases. You now know the two types of management available to you. As you can see, you can become as active or inactive in the operation of your investment real estate as you wish. I suggest that you at least start out trying it all on your own. If you have or can find the time, you may quickly employ a resident manager, but keep the second management function yourself. This will be an invaluable education for you as your real estate investments start growing. If you are working with a knowledgeable real estate professional who specializes in investment real estate, he can give you the guidance you will need to become familiar with the operation and management of your property. Or maybe this is not your first venture into real estate investing, or you simply cannot find the time to manage it yourself. You should then consider a management company. How to set up a simple and efficient record-keeping system. One of your priorities in managing your property now is to set up a bookkeeping or accounting system for the operation of the property. The system does not have to be a complicated accounting procedure that only a CPA can understand. The system shown here is adaptable to any type of investment property. Any stationery store sells ledger sheets and binders to hold them. Conveniently, now you can use computer programs like Microsoft Excel to file all these ledgers into different spreadsheets in your computer easily. You will want a separate page for each tenant, showing how much rent he pays, tax if any, lease expiration, and security deposit held by you. The sheet will have room to enter each month for the year in order to keep track of when he pays his rent. This illustrates a simple income ledger form for the tenant. This simple page not only tells you everything you need to know about the status of his lease, but also shows a record of rent payments. The ledger will be closed out at the end of each calendar year, so each page should end on December 31st, unless you purchase the property as a company and your company has a year ending other than December 31st. Ledger sheet for expenses are also prepared in the same manner. A typical ledger sheet for expenses is shown here. Notice that this ledger is not set up on a one entry a month basis because you do not know how many items you may have during the month. There is, however, a cumulative column at the right to simply showing an end of the month total for that expense item. Do not worry about the property taxes and insurance items. These are paid only once a year and can be incorporated with other expense items. The accounting procedure on your mortgage payments will be a little different because it consists of two separate items, the principal and interest. For accounting purposes and for year-end balance sheets and tax returns, this breakdown will be necessary. Bank will normally send you such statement half-yearly. You can use the payment schedule provided in our real estate investment analysis spreadsheet to generate an estimation of the figures. This illustrates an example of the mortgage payment ledger sheet. Once your books are set up, monthly posting of income and expenses becomes a simple matter. You also have an easy reference to make sure rents are being paid on time and that none of your operating expenses are out of line. You may elect to prepare a monthly balance sheet to see how your investment is doing. It really isn't necessary on a small investment property, such as a rental apartment. A quick look at your ledger book and bank book tells you if everything is going according to plan. Preparing a profit and loss statement. At the end of the year, you will need to prepare a year-end profit and loss statement. On December 31st, your statement might look something like this. The statement is in a very simple form. All income is total and total expenses are then shown. With the profit and loss statement, you can now prepare the actual performance of your investment with your initial projection to see if most income and expenses items fall right in line with your previous projection. What must you know before renting your property? First, determining the fair market rent level. What determines the rent you should charge for your properties? The obvious answer is your competition. What are comparable properties renting for in your area? You'll have to make a neighborhood survey to find out. Be sure you are comparing apples with apples. Check the location, condition of the property, size and amenities as well. A brand new building with new furniture may demand a higher rent than your old apartment. Assuming your property is in first-class condition or property of the same type in your area is scarce, this may not hold true. Where rent controls are in effect, you have an entirely different ballgame. You are probably locked in at a maximum rent level. Although you want to be fair with your tenants, you also want to be fair to yourself as well by charging the maximum rent you can for the market you are in. New rental properties such as apartments will no doubt have a higher rent schedule because of the high land and building costs. The investor has to charge high rents to justify the cost. The owners of older apartments in the same area, such as yourself, greatly benefit from these new properties. You have the opportunity to adjust your rents up to the rates charged by the new apartment's owner. After a couple of years of owning your properties, if you are able to brag that you never had a vacancy, the chances are your rents are too low. Number 2, never become too friendly with your tenants. That will be the downfall of your rental income. Compassion for tenants is important. No one wants a landlord who reminds them of the old-time rent-collecting villains. But your own investment goals are important also. You did not buy your investment property to operate a charity home. Of course, you can do that if doing charity is your main purpose of acquiring that property. But if you want to make a profit on your property investment, this rule is very important. Never get too close with your tenants. Expense and inflation will continue taking their ever-increasing toll on your profit. They have no compassion. Once you get close to your tenants and know all your tenants' problems, you will not want to raise their rent, and that's when you'll start having problems. Keep an arm's length relationship with your tenants. When the market demands it, surely operating expenses will. Get a rent increase when the lease comes up for renewal. Number 3. Rental increase. A reasonable increase in rent is expected by most tenants, unless the increase is unreasonably large. Most tenants would rather pay the increase than face the trouble of moving to somewhere that may or may not end up less expensive. Reasonable type of increase is also called a nuisance raise. The nuisance of trying to find another place at a comparable or lower rent, and the nuisance with expense of moving is just not worth it. So tenants rather pay the small increase in rent. It will probably be only 5% to 10%. Another type of increase you will seek is an economic increase. This increase may be larger than the nuisance raise. It is brought about by factors over which you have no control, such as tax increases, higher maintenance or management costs, higher interest rate or inflation. And a sizable jump in rents may be needed to keep you ahead of these factors. Do not be shy to tell your tenants the reason of this economic increase, as most of the time they will understand. Number 4. Keep the economy in mind. When considering rental increase, you need to keep the overall economy in mind. It was pointed out earlier that due to our continuing inflation, prices keep going up. This includes the cost of food, appliances, professional services, transport, and housing. This means that rents must go up to cover added property operating expenses created by inflation. If you fail to increase your rents to at least keep up with inflation, you will find that your real estate investment will cease to appreciate. Then selling or trading your property at what should be the fair market price will be difficult. Do not let yourself fall into this trap. When market conditions permit, keep your rents up with the current comparable area rents. Your property will appreciate more rapidly and bring a higher price on the market when you sell. The most important considerations here is the condition of your local rental market. An area experiencing a 10% average vacancy rate is not the market to request rent raises, at least not large ones. The tenant in that type of market has a wide selection of available rental properties. You may want to sacrifice some added income in order to keep your property occupied. When the rental market dries up and your area is experiencing a 1% to 2% vacancy rate, then you can safely increase rents. Number 5. Furnished or unfurnished. A furnished apartment or house makes skipping a lot easier for tenant. All a tenant has to do is pack his personal belongings and go. He has no furniture to move. So, why have furnished apartments or house? Simply, furnished apartments and houses can demand for more rent. However, depending on market conditions and what types of properties are in demand, you may want to consider eliminating the furniture in your property as it wears out. Rent the unit unfurnished instead of replacing it. Number 6. Keep your property in top condition. You will want to be assured of higher occupancy and top rents. This requires keeping your property in first-class condition. We have seen properties where the investor became greedy and took as much out of the property as he could without putting anything back into it. It wasn't long before his vacancy level started to increase, and as an indirect effect, he had to lower rents to obtain tenants. Once a property gets a bad reputation, it will be a long and costly process of bringing it up back to standard. Keep the exterior of your property painted and the landscaping well trimmed. This is the first impression a prospective tenant has of your property. If your property creates a low-class appearance, you can expect low-class tenants at a low rent level. When a tenant moves out of your property, especially if he has lived in it for a couple of years or more, clean the carpet, curtain and give the walls a coat of paint before you show it to a prospective tenant. How to locate and qualify prospective tenants? There are numerous ways of letting prospective tenants know you have a property for rent. The two most common are vacancy signs on the property itself and rental ads. Your lease agreement should be written with a clause requiring the present tenant to give you at least 2 months' notice prior to the expiration of his lease if he intends to move. This gives you 60 days to locate another tenant. Ideally, you want to have a tenant ready to move in the day after the present tenant moves out. You'll need just enough time to clean up the property for the new tenant. And you can download our sample lease agreement here with common clauses like this written clearly on it. Newspaper ads should spell out terms, rent, and at least general location of the property. This will save you a lot of unnecessary calls from tenants who do not qualify because of price and so on. Engaging a real estate agent who specializes in finding rental properties for tenants can be another way too. They are paid in one of two ways. They may charge the tenant a fee to find them an apartment or house. They can also charge the landlord for listing the property. This fee is only payable if they find a tenant who accepts the property. Nowadays, with speedy information technology, you could have an access to couples of free websites such as mudah.my and rumahsewa.com to advertise your rental properties by yourself. You will notice that even most of the real estate agents are using this way to market their properties for rent or for sale. How to find tenants for stores and offices. Newspaper advertising and signs on the property are the most common methods of locating tenants for commercial buildings and stores. If you have a sizable rental space available, try trade magazines and also contacting major chain stores in your area. Determine who would be a likely tenant for your building. Is the store space suitable for a drugstore, discount store, food store, etc.? Is the office space suitable for an insurance company, attorneys, or an accounting firm? Who would desire your industrial space? Is there a manufacturing company moving into your area? What about the tenants in the area? Could any of them be considering expansion? You may have to divide a large space if you cannot find a single tenant to lease all of it. Use your imagination. Don't be afraid to contact many prospective tenants, but research the market first. Chances are a major store will not be interested in your space if they have another store close by. Qualifying tenants. First, you have to think who you want to rent to. Who is your target tenant? Are you looking for families, college students, single, expatriate, or company? The best target tenant would be a company or expatriate because the rental payment will be paid to you sharp on time. Normally, they will have their human resource department to manage and abide to the terms on lease agreement. So there will be less hassle for you to manage such tenant. However, of utmost importance, be certain that none of your qualifying criterion can be interpreted as a discriminatory as far as race, color, or religion. It is against the law. You can, however, restrict your tenants to mature adults, no children or pets, retired aged people, etc. etc. As part of your tenant qualification procedure, you should have a personal interview with the tenant. You should at least obtain answers to these questions: name and present address, present or previous landlord's name and phone number, age and marital status, financial situation, and most importantly, occupation. How long are they planning to stay, and who is going to stay together in your property? These questions give you the opportunity to qualify the tenant and determine his financial ability to pay the rent, his stability employment-wise, and whether or not he has had rental problems in his previous locations. Don't be afraid to call prior landlords and ask if they had any problem with your prospect. Other than that, during your interview with prospective tenant, you may try to judge the way they speak, their professionalism and their appearances, whether neat and tidy. Ask about their profession and their company contact number and business card. You may want to call the company they work with to confirm their job designation as well. Give yourself more time to check through all prospective tenants first before confirming your tenant. However, do not forget to let your prospective tenants know the timeline of your consideration. At the end of selection, notify the rest of interested tenants with nice comfort words so that you are not burning the bridge with them. Who knows, they might be a confirmed tenant in your next property. Qualifying your prospective tenant is very important to reduce the problems that may arise later after you have signed the lease with them. A little bit of hard work at the beginning is necessary to ensure your property is well taken care of and will produce hassle-free passive income to you every single month. What to do if you have continual vacancies? Although you may not own your property long enough to have rental problem due to economic changes in the area, you should be aware of what actions you can take if you are suddenly faced with continual vacancies. First, analyze why you are having vacancies. Is your competition having the same problem? A general market slowdown is not easy to cure. When, on the other hand, most of the buildings around you are staying full, take a look at your property. Does it need sprucing up? Do competitive properties offer more than you do in terms of better or newer facilities for the same rent? Ask potential tenants why they are not interested in your property. Decorating problems can be cured. Updating of appliances can also be accomplished, although the capital expenditure is greater and requires careful study. You do not want to spend thousands of dollars if it will not solve your vacancy problems. Problems such as competitive properties like apartments having more amenities or more recreation space cannot be corrected in your building. Your only solution to major problems such as these may be to consider the highest and best use for your property without major alteration. What can you do to improve your rental picture? consider a change in the type of tenants you have. You may want to rent to couples with a child or pet. Perhaps you can appeal to singles. For example, two working girls or men can often afford more rent than a young married couple. If all else fails, you can always reduce rents until the rental market improves again. At the same time, engage more experienced professionals to help you market your properties. Chances are you will never be faced with a major rental problem. But if the market does become tight and you end up with a couple of vacancies at the same time, do not panic. The worst thing you can do is to rent to an undesirable tenant just to keep the rent coming in. He may cause more problems that you do not want to deal with. The longer you are involved with the rental market, the better you will become at keeping property tenanted, even in a slow market. So it is not as difficult as it appears. Let's see what we have covered in this module. First, you will need to determine how much you want to get involved in managing your investment property. Do you want to do it all by yourself, or hire a resident manager for parts of the work, or outsource all of it to a property management company? Then we provide a sample of bookkeeping Excel file for download. You can use it to prepare your income, expenses, mortgage payment ledgers, and also the profit and loss statement. And before you rent out your property, you must get to know all the following matters. First, determine the fair market rent. Second, you should never become too friendly with tenants. Third, watch out for the rental increase issue. And you always need to keep the economy in mind. Fifth, you got to decide whether your apartment need to be furnished or unfurnished. And number 6, always keep your property at the top first-class condition. Then we talk about the importance of qualifying your tenants by conducting interviews and assess their personality and also financial ability to make sure that they are capable of taking good care of your property and are able to pay rents on time. The final part is about what you can do if you face the problem of continual vacancy. Now you are ready to find a quality tenant who can pay your rental income on time and at the same time also take good care of your property. In the coming module, we will talk about the issue of selling your investment property. Why and when should you sell your properties? How much selling price is considered attractive? So see you in the next module. We wish you all the best. Goodbye.